Good morning and welcome to Namaste today, an uplifting way to begin your day. I'm your heartfelt host and the sensei to serious joy, Christopher Witecki. This audio blogcast is for Thursday, May 11, 2017. Welcome to the new world, my friend. Namaste. I don't know about you, but that full moon in Scorpio yesterday literally wiped me out. I had zero energy. But the good news is today we begin literally, I believe, a new world. In today's Zodiac Weather, I'll talk about Step 21 and how it's going to start to get fun. And later in our tea time, I have only 2 words for you. You're fired. But first, let's take a look at today's moods and your Zodiac Weather. This Zodiac Weather is for Thursday, May 11th, 2017. And my global prediction for planet Gaia is sunny and hopeful today. Step 21 rules the day when it starts to get fun, and the moon moves into Sagittarius, the ruler of Step 21. Let's take a look at the planets. Well, as I predicted, yesterday's full moon in Scorpio was a whopper. We had so much Step 0 energy on the planet. It was the separation, as I said, from the old life to the new life. And I don't know about you, but I had the strangest and some of the darkest dreams I've ever had, and I could barely stay awake all day. My energy was zapped. And it's times like those that I'm grateful to be an astrologer, because otherwise, being the paranoid creature that I am, I would have thought something was very wrong. But the truth is, something is going very right. The universe is pushing to a new day, and today on Thursday is the first day of that new life. One reason is Step 21. Step 21 is the first step where we step into the future planning, and since we're in the I manifest consciousness of Taurus, we're stepping into the future planning of what we manifest. Everything up until this step has technically been our foundation. Now we get to actually plant the crops that we want. That is, of course, if we know what we want, correct? And that's really what Step 21 is about. It's about shopping. The 2 and the 1 is how we feel. The 1 is what we love. And so the mission of today is to feel around the earth for what you love. In other words, it's time to go shopping for the reality you would like. And as you probably know, to go shopping and really have a good time, you have to feel good and you have to feel into it. So today, that's really the first agenda of the day, just feeling solid and yourself. From there, it's time to look for the fun. Now that full moon shifts into Sagittarius today, which is the ruler of Step 21. Step 21 is a power of 3 or a net 3, and Sagittarius is the power of 3. The power of 3 is literally that third option we didn't know about, and that's what we're looking for today. We're emotionally searching for this third option. Now, I will put a caution to the wind. The moon is approaching Black Lilith all day long, and as it approaches and eventually crosses tonight, you may have to encounter a certain fear and walk by it, okay? That's part of what we do when we encounter a fear. We look at it, we acknowledge it, and we walk right by. We don't let it affect us. And don't let any fear affect you. The truth is Black Lilith is there to keep us from any sort of remorse shopping. In other words, buying things or manifesting lives that we've always manifested before or we have manifested before that didn't work. So basically, your fears come up today to keep you from making the wrong purchases. But another aspect of Sagittarius energy is Saturn. Saturn has been in Sagittarius for quite some time now. It's now at Step 26 retrograde, and it's now dead trining Uranus and Mercury. What this means is we are searching for our story today. We are shopping for what happens. And even the country, I think, is shopping for what happens. We'll talk about that more in our tea time. And so we're emotionally exploring our personal philosophies about this or that so that we can come to an emotional conclusion in the next 36 hours about where we feel the moon, our story is going, Sagittarius and Saturn. But, as I mentioned, Saturn and Uranus are dead trining at Step 26, so it's my opinion that this shopping trip of the next 36 hours, this emotional shopping trip, will not only lead to what you want to buy or what you want to experience, but also a decision of who you are in that experience. I've been talking about for weeks now this conjunction of Mercury and Uranus at step 26. I told you about it days and days ago about how on May 11th you would begin to come to a decision about who you are and who you are not. As you wake up today, we have defined after a very powerful moon who we are not. And so now we are left with, in the next 36 hours or so, who we feel we are. In practical terms, you may see a lot of your unanswered questions get answered in the next couple of days. By Saturday, you may really begin to feel a whole new reality is underway and that you have clarified many little aspects of yourself that have been basically hangnails, causing you a lot of irritation for the entire year of 2017, to be honest. I think it's been an irritation of the year. So this is the part of the week that I had spoken about in my weekly video where I thought things start to get fun and they start to get better than they have in the entire year. So you'll have to comment and let me know. And the interesting paradox I have found with reality is that when the people start to get really clear about who they are, then the organizing governments become very unclear about who they are. So as the average citizen becomes clear, the organizations of the citizens become unclear. And if you have listened to the news in the last 24 hours about President Trump, you will know that one of my other predictions I made in the weekly horoscope on Namaste Today Monday also came true. At the moment that the North Node conjuncted his ascendant, President Trump turned to Director James Comey and said, "You're fired." So without further ado, go steep yourself some tea and let's have our daily tea time. Hello, my friend and earthly neighbor, and welcome to our tea time. Today's tea time topic is, you're fired. And of course, this is a bit of a funny tea time topic. I'm referring to, of course, President Trump in the last 24 hours firing James Comey. But isn't it ironic, of course, that we got to know Trump from a reality series where all he did was fire a contestant week after week. And since he's been in office, he so far has fired National Security Director Michael Flynn, and he's just now fired our head of FBI, James Comey. Very interesting indeed. And I'm sure as I gave you the title, "You're Fired," many of you thought I was referring to President Trump, who might now become fired. I mean, this is the first real, very suspicious activity of President Trump that would point to perhaps impeachment or whatnot. What I find fascinating about all this is, of course, the timing. It was just in my weekly show on Monday of Namaste Today that I said, watch President Trump starting on the full moon, because the North Node is hitting his ascendant directly at 29 degrees Leo, and that is a time when his ego will surge and he may go too far. And sure enough, the president performed like astrological clockwork and fired off a firing of James Comey. Now, we all know the politics of this and what it may look like or not look like, but I want to focus a little bit on the astrology part of it to give you some insight that you otherwise may not have thought of. First of all, I want to underscore that this was probably one of the most dangerous transits I saw in Trump's chart, the one that truly made me nervous. And up until now, I was looking at North Korea, I was looking at Syria, and I was thinking, oh Lord, please don't fire off another big bomb or missile or anything on this particular full moon, President Trump. Please don't. And I'm so glad he decided to attack our own government instead of a foreign nation. So thank Goddess for that, right? The truth is, our own government and our own way of doing things is where the transformation is. We may want to project it onto the world, but it is us that has issues. It is us that has dis-ease in our system, and it is us that's going to unfold this dis-ease in the coming months and years. Ironically, also with timing, just yesterday, I did a show about the United States and our karma and the play out of the United States re-evolution. I also gave the timeline of that re-evolution. If you haven't heard that show, you might want to go back and look because it'll make you feel a lot better. The good news is we do have time. What President Trump did on Tuesday was technically light a fuse. This is a long burning fuse. It'll probably burn all through the entire summer, and it might blow up probably on the Great American Solar Eclipse, which will be August 21st. Now, I talked about this eclipse being very powerful for individual achievement, and that's very true. I think individuals will achieve. But I also think that this solar eclipse may be the downfall of abuse of power. And that actually is what tends to happen with this solar eclipse series. This series of solar eclipses in Leo are known as the Saros series or the Saros series. And just like north nodes in Leo, which I've been talking about, solar eclipse cycles happen in 18-year cycles. So we have these cycles every 18 years. Looking back into time, we have always had some major political issues in this particular series that made us question our government or authorities. It's kind of like the solar eclipse where the emperor is wearing no clothes. Not only wearing no clothes, but at a time when the audience finally says, "Hey, he's naked." It's also often a time in history where the leadership tends to try to hide or blot out or ink out, let's say, the good information. So this is a time when power does corrupt, and the people at first usually don't see the corruption, but then come to understand the corruption, and so everyone sort of learns through it. Now, let me just give you some examples of some of the history of this, and I want to give this credit to Marjorie Orr, who is a very phenomenal astrologer. I think she's in Great Britain, and she does a lot of astrological, historical, and political writings together, her blog. So check her out, Marjorie Orr, if you'd like. She goes into some deep depth about the history of this Saros series and what has happened each time. Now, the last time we had the solar eclipse and the north nodes in Leo was between 1998 and the year 2000. And wouldn't you know that that was the time when America was dealing with the Monica Lewinsky scandal and Bill Clinton. In fact, Bill Clinton was impeached during this last period, literally. And let's remember why he was impeached. He wasn't impeached because he had sex in the Oval Office. He was impeached because he lied about it to a grand jury. He lied about it to the American people. And at the time, Congress called him on it. But we were having the same Saros series events at that particular year. And at that time, individuals were really climbing. Individual wealth was climbing. The country was doing really well. People were soaring in new .com businesses. But the institutions of the people were highly troubled. Okay, so you can see that in that evidence. Now, the time before that was 1981. And in 1981, someone attempted to kill Ronald Reagan in March. Now, I know March is a far cry from August, but when you're talking about corrupt power and bringing corrupt power down, you have to admit that we only see that every so often, and it takes a lot of different hand plays, so to speak, rounds of poker, before you really get to that round that reveals all. So with solar eclipses, you often see evidence of the story beginning very far before and very far after the eclipse. So here we are in May, and I'm actually attributing the firing of James Comey really to this Saros series solar eclipse event. This is the beginning of the countdown, or like I said, the lighting of the fuse. So in 1981, when there was an attempt on Ronald Reagan's life in March of 81, the solar eclipse that year was, of course, in August. But it's my personal psychic belief that that attempted assassination of Ronald Reagan was not some crazy guy who wanted Jodie Foster's love. I think that sounds a lot like CIA reprogramming to me. But regardless, I think there was a coup d'etat there, and it failed. Now, going back to the Saros series that goes before 81, we go to 1963, and guess what? In November of 1963, John F. K. was assassinated. So as you can tell, we often have this fight for power around this Saros series. We often have attempts at removing people in power. Bill Clinton, Ronald Reagan, JFK. And we often have an abuse of power as well. The example before 63 that I'll give, and then I'll stop with this because I don't want to scare you, was actually August of 1945. And at that point, That was when the United States dropped the bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And that was also, of course, the natural death of FDR. He died by natural causes, they say, right? But that, too, was this major event of world power and fighting for world power. So it seems that history is playing out as it should, and here we are at the latest round of people and power. And as I mentioned yesterday, I think in this round we're going to realize something much more profound than we ever have, you see, because of Pluto in Capricorn during this particular time. Pluto was not in Capricorn in 89 with Clinton, it was not in 81, it was not in 63, it was not in 45. This time it's happening at the same kind of transit in which the United States was born. This time, whatever fuse is being lit will not go out without a fight, so to speak. And I think this is the first play in many plays that we're going to see that's going to slowly unravel some of the fabric of how our world actually runs. People have coined this little move of President Trump as Nixonian sabotage, as in Richard Nixon, and how he did something actually quite similar at one point, if you remember, in 1973, firing his team of special prosecutors around the burglary of Watergate. Now, one thing interesting about that time was that Uranus was in Libra, and it was squaring the United States Mercury. The United States has Mercury in high degrees of Cancer, 24 degrees Cancer. So we think like a caring nation, okay? We think like a master 24, but the United States sun is actually at 13 degrees, so we actually live at 13 and think at 24. But during that time with Richard Nixon, Uranus was in Libra and squaring our nation's Mercury, and so at that time, part of the square is the innovation of corrupt information, the innovation of false information, the innovation of freedom of the press. All of these things, I think, may have come from Uranus squaring our U.S. Mercury. You should know that now Uranus is in Aries, the opposite sign of Libra, and again, as of yesterday, was squaring our United States Mercury. And I further learned from Marjorie Orr's website that this goes back in American history. She cites actually a time when we had a fascist group of Americans trying to take over our own country, and this was during FDR's time, and she's saying in 1933 we also had a square to Mercury, same sort of stuff coming up. So apparently this is a volatile time when it comes to conspiracy. And I appreciate, by the way, Marjorie's work and anyone else who contributes out there on the internet, because Sensei can't do all this research on his own, by the way. So power to the people who are looking into the planets and understanding these patterns. But I believe this is actually a good thing, so I don't want to put any fear in you or make you worry, because I actually think the term "you're fired" might be something we adopt as American people for different governmental agencies. I also think we're going to start to fire some corporations, and I think we're going to find and uncover in the coming years that corporations are the ones behind these particular kings with no clothes on and bad emperors and abuses of power, and that really our fight is not even necessarily political as we have been led to believe. But since Pluto is in Capricorn, and because Neptune is in Pisces and Uranus is in Aries, I do believe that this fuse that was lit will lead to a point where the world's people say enough is enough. We'll at least have that option. And I believe part of the story you were born to live was to be a powerful voice at that moment. So, my friend, until now and February 2018, when we move into Pluto at 20 degrees and the story really starts to get moving, you have this time to focus on yourself and focus on your foundation and focus on the things you need to get done before the story, the national story, really starts to run and be fun. Okay? So don't worry. Things are unfolding as I believe they should, and it's going to indeed be a fascinating reality show to watch. All right, my friend, thank you so much for tuning in each day, and thank you for allowing me to talk about some of these other out there topics, because I find it fascinating to explore astrology and history. I'll be back tomorrow for your Fun Friday show, and until then, remember, I love you, and live, love, be.
Live, love, be.